Good afternoon, Mr. Madoff. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
No problem. Happy to be here.
To start, let's dive into your recent decision to upgrade MicroStrategy stock to a buy. It has raised a lot of eyebrows. What made you decide to take this position?
Well, the market's a funny thing, as you know. I've been following MicroStrategy for a while now. What caught my attention was their significant Bitcoin holdings. In a volatile market, that's become something of a hedge. It's not exactly conventional, but they're sitting on a digital gold mine. The company's decision to diversify their reserves into Bitcoin has certainly changed the conversation around their stock.
So you're saying that the Bitcoin holdings are the primary reason behind your upgrade?
Absolutely, but it's more than just the holdings themselves. MicroStrategy has managed to amass a substantial amount of Bitcoin, and that gives the company a real edge in a world that's moving toward digital currencies. Bitcoin isn't just a speculative asset anymore, it's becoming a store of value. And with inflation concerns lingering, the company has positioned itself well. MicroStrategy is a classic case of having the right balance of risk and reward. They're not just sitting on Bitcoin, they're actively integrating it into their strategy.
And how exactly is MicroStrategy doing this, Mr. Madoff?
It's pretty simple, actually. They issue company stock for paper money, and they take that paper money and buy virtual codes. Stock issuance. Paper money. Virtual codes.
How do you respond to critics who argue that betting on Bitcoin, especially as a corporate asset, is highly risky? Many would say it's far too volatile to be considered a stable investment for a company.
I understand the skepticism, I do. Bitcoin's volatility is well documented, but let's look at the broader picture. Yes, it swings wildly, up and down, but that volatility has been part of its success. Early investors in Bitcoin saw massive returns despite the ups and downs. MicroStrategy's approach has been more about holding, not trading. They've taken a long-term view, and they have enough capital reserves to ride out any short-term volatility. To help illustrate my point, I'd like for you to take a moment and pull up the graphic I sent you prior to our interview. Do you have that available, Becky?
Don't call me Becky, but we do have your graphic up, and it's now available to the viewing public.
Lovely. Now, as you can see, this isn't necessarily my greatest work.
Really? Why would you say that?
Under my present circumstances, I'm forbidden to have anything sharp in my possession, so I'm limited to scratch paper and crayons. But as you can see by the illustration, early adopters to Bitcoin had first-mover advantage. A handful of miners, investors, and Dungeons and Dragons players got in early, then a few financial institutions and corporations. Now, the general public, to a certain extent, want access typically through ETFs. I mean, look at this thing. So many people holding so many bags of money.
You're right, Mr. Madoff. Your illustration does show an exorbitant number of bag holders. But I must ask, based on your illustration and how you define the current ownership structure of Bitcoin, it kind of looks and sounds a bit like a pyramid scheme.
I don't see it that way, Rebecca. I liken it more to Reaganomics and trickle-down policy, the money at the top sprinkling tons and tons of infinite money to the people at the bottom. Oh, and please call me Bernie.
No. It seems like you're suggesting that Bitcoin is providing more stability than traditional assets in some respects. But I have to ask, given your past and your experience in the financial world, do you believe that there's an element of speculation in MicroStrategy's thesis?
Speculation is a part of any market, whether it's stocks, bonds, or even real estate. But it's important to distinguish between speculation and informed risk-taking. For example, I look back through my career as president of Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, LLC. We took a keen interest in protecting our original investors by seeking value in asset classes that were beyond conventional. We sought to extract value from new stakeholders in markets that we were able to penetrate successfully. We did this typically through the myth of scarcity. It was considerably difficult to become a client of mine. Once you were, you felt privileged. Everything worked perfectly, and I'd still be in business today if my investors hadn't asked for their money back.
Let's step away from Bitcoin for a moment. Tell me how you've been doing as of late.
Well, I've seen better days, Rebecca. At the trial, it was clear to everyone that the lead prosecutor was out to get me. like when he presented our financial statements as evidence, calling them juvenile and something that a second grader could put together, all because they were written in pencil on loose-leaf paper. My penmanship is far greater than that of a 7-year-old. Then there was the pity party presented to the jury. The prosecution presented thousands of my former investors, falsely referring to them as victims, and argued that I defrauded them out of billions of dollars. One investor took the stand crying, and I quote, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I had my whole life savings invested in Bernie Madoff's fund, and now it's all gone." When they asked me where it was, I told them how could I know while vacationing at my beach house in Montauk for the better part of the year. I knew I would never get a fair trial.
And now, Mr. Madoff, how are things going for you at this present day?
Same answer, different details, Rebecca. As soon as I was shipped down to Butner, the warden immediately took advantage of my experience as president of a large financial institution. I was promoted within a week from restroom superintendent to laundry. As you're likely to guess, the positive impact of this decision was felt immediately throughout the prison. I'm told almost daily about how the sheets have never been so fresh. I've made a couple of friends, my cellmate Rodrigo for one. He tells me there's a need to always keep an eye on me so I feel safe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Madoff, for your insights today. I'm sure your perspective will give our readers plenty to think about.
My pleasure. Always happy to offer a viewpoint.